Good day, everyone. So today I'm going to discuss how you're going to create your final project in Programming 1. For our final project, the students are tasked to create a very simple information system using console application. Let me demonstrate the final project. So in this example, we have one planets, which is a content, two types of galaxy, which is a menu, three about the galaxy, which is also a content, and then four programs, which is about the previous activities that we have done in our programming subject. So number five, about the programmer, which is another content. And then in this section, you have enter your choice number wherein you can type your selection. We are now going to start creating our project. So in order to create our project, so we're going to open Visual Studio 2022 or 2017 or 2012, depending on what version is available on your computer. So in my case, I'm using Visual Studio 2022. So I'm going to click on Create Project. And then we're going to create a console app based on .NET Framework. So if this is not available in your screen, so you can start by searching and typing console app. Okay, so take note, there are two different versions for console app for Visual Studio 2022. So you have the .NET Core, and then the other one, which we need, is the .NET Framework. So we're going to select this one and then click next. Okay, so for the project name, so since my name is, my last name is Cabrera, so I'm going to create a project based on computers. Okay, create project. Okay, so the difference if you create the project using .NET Core is you don't have the using commands at the top of your program, and you don't have the namespace needed in order to call your previous activities. Okay, so let's start by creating the design or the layout for our final project. Let's say, for example, in my case, it is about computers. So I'm going to create the menu for computers. So let's have the title on the first on the first right line function, computers. And then just a blank console.writeLine for space. And the next. So let's have the first content, which is about what is a computer. Okay, the next. We have content number 2, which is about history of computer. And the next, number 3. So I'm going to have my first menu, which is parts of computer. And the next, so for number 4, I'm going to have another menu, which is about benefits of having a computer. Okay, and the next, so for number 5, this will be about the programmer. So therefore, you can input your profile on menu number 5. And then for number 6, let's have my activities. So this is where you're going to load your previous activities. So the list will be provided in our e-classroom. And then let's have another space. And the next. So for the last part, let's have the 0 for exit. Okay, so this would be the menu for my project. Okay, so in order to have interaction with the project, so I'm going to create a variable choice, and it will be an integer so that it can accept whole numbers. Okay, so in order to accept value for choice or to enter value for choice, so we're going to use a readline function. But before that, let's create an interface for the user. So another blank line for me. But in your case, you have to provide the frame which we have discussed to make your project more appealing. So after the blank right line, so I'm going to create a write only function. So therefore, what I will type will be placed on the right side of this text. So enter your choice number. And then we're going to pass the value to choice. Choice equals console.readline. But remember, if you use this one, if you use the console.readline, you're going to receive a string. So therefore, you have to convert it into an integer. So you can make use of the functions int.parse to convert the text input into a string. Okay, so now we can test this one so that we can have a little peek about what will the project look like. Okay, so we can now type a number, and that number will will be uh, the value will be transferred to the variable choice. Okay, so now let's continue. So in order to have the menu, so we're going to use a switch case so that we can select which part of the project we want to access. So let's have switch, and then the variable choice, which we have declared, and then open and close curly brace, meaning the switch will have this block of codes inside. And then for our choices, we have case 1 for the what is computer menu. And then you may now start writing the complete syntax for the case so that later on you will not forget to include the required statements such as the break to end the case. Okay? And then since we already know that we have this number of menu 1 to 6 plus a 0 for exit, that would be 7, and a handler for invalid inputs, which will be the default. Okay, so 7 menus or 7 case, and then a default. So case 1, case 2, case 3, case 4, case 5, case 6, case 0, that's the number 7. And then let's just copy paste this one and replace this one as default. Okay, so now let's try to fix the errors by properly numbering the case, which will be the choice value. 4, 5, and then 6. And then we have 0 for the exit. Okay? So in order to test these switch cases, so let's say for example, let's copy the menu as that will be the title of our project. So in your example, in the previous example that we have discussed, so you can copy paste the whole menu which you have already prepared with a design so that the frame or the border that you're going to create is already finished. And then you just have to make adjustment so that you're going to have a standard size for your contents and frame or border. Okay? So let's say for example, the title will be what is computer, and then inside the border that you have already created, you can type the content that you're going to include. Let's say in my case, it is what is a computer. So therefore, I can Google I can Google some descriptions which will help me populate the content of my information system. Okay, so just take note that you have to adjust the sizes for the text so that it can still be accommodated by the size of by the frame that you have designed. Okay, so in my case, I'm just randomly encoding the values. Okay, so let's test case number 1. Control F5. Okay, so number 1. So we have now successfully loaded number 1. But if you want to load menu number 1 or content number 1, you have to remove everything first. You have to clear the console. Okay, so in order to do that, you can type a console.clear on top of case number 1. But if you're going to include the clear on case number 1, meaning you have to do the same for case number 1 to up to number 6 and default and 0 for the exit. Since you already know that you have to clear the console every time you load a case, why not just simply move the clear before you proceed in loading anything or before you proceed with the switch case. Okay, so now let's try the program. So we have number 1. Ayan. So we have successfully cleared the console before we load the next menu. Okay, so next is if after I press the key, the program should not terminate and we need to go back to the main menu. Okay, so in order to do this, we're going to call the main function again so that we're going to have a loop-like structure wherein we're going back again to the start of our program. So in order to do that, so before we end the program, in this case, just for you to see, this is the open for the code block for our main function, and this is the end for the main function. So I'm going to place it before we end the program or the main function. So I'm going to call the main function again. So in this case, it is requiring a string arguments wherein we have to type any string value, but we're just going to ignore it because we're not actually typing anything to go back to the main function. So you're going to encounter an error wherein it is because we did not supply the string arguments which is needed for the main function or main method to execute. So we're just going to remove the string arguments, which is the parameter or arguments needed for the main function. Okay, so once we have done that, let's go back to the main. And it is now working. So we can now test the program again. Control F5. Okay, so we're going to select number 1. Okay, so it has successfully loaded and we now have the what is computer. And then we have the computers again and the main menu. So we have successfully reloaded or called the main function or main method. But we did not yet want to load the main menu because we are still reading the first content, which is what is about what is a computer. Okay, so in order to post the program, so we're going to include a code after we finish after we load the last content for our case 1, which is about what is a computer. So the code will be console.readKey. Okay? So readKey means the console will post and wait for any key that we're going to press. Okay, so after we press a key, what we're going to do is what will happen is the program will stop, and then after we press a key, the next line of code will execute. Okay, so let's test this one. Number 1. Okay, so as you can see, we have the blinking cursor and it is ready to accept any key, any character, spacebar, or even an enter. So in this case, I'm going to type letter A so that you would be able to see it. So we now have letter A and computers. Okay, so to give instruction to the users, so we might as well include another line and an instruction wherein we say press any key to continue, so that the users would be able to read this instruction, and the user will press any key. Okay, and the next is, since we have loaded the program, and we call the first menu, so you're going to see what is computer and then press any key to continue. And then if we press letter A, the previous content is still loaded. So what we want to do is we want to clear the previous content, and then as well as the character that we have pressed, which is in this case, we press letter A and it is messing up with the content, which is the title. Okay, so in order to fix this issue, so we're going down once again, that before we call the main function, we're going to clear the screen or the console. Okay, so let's load this one. And then let's try computers. Number 1. Okay, so what is a computer? And then we have press any key to continue. I'm going to press letter A again. Okay, so as you have seen, the letter A was cleared together with the previous content which was loaded, and we have successfully loaded the main method or main function. Okay, and the next, since we know that the first menu is a content, or the first choice is a content, the second choice is also a content, and then the fifth is also a content, which is just simply about the programmer. So you can load your previous activity on that one, or create another one introducing yourself or discussing anything about the developer, which is you. Okay, and then since we all know that it's going to have the same content only for the choices, we might as well copy paste what we have already created in case number 1. So take note, if you have done this correctly, you have already created a border for the main menu, and when you copy paste the main menu on case number 1 and you have simply modified it, you already have the border which you have already designed prior to creating the content. Okay? So therefore, you're going to have a standard size of border for your program. Okay? So we have content number 2, which is, in my case, this is history of computer. And then number 3, about the programmer. So it would be the same. Oh, sorry, it's number 5, or the third content. And then, also, for the default, we're going to copy paste this one also, because the default is the one we're going to use to handle invalid input. So we just have to clear the content instead of modifying the content. So I might just remove everything and just make use of the single console.writeLine and key in, or instead of using this one, so in your case, do not delete everything. So you're going to retain your border. Okay, so I really need the first line to type in the message. Okay, so the message is invalid input. Please select another number. Okay, so I'm going to test this one. So we have number 1, what is a computer? Number 2, history of computer. And then number 5, so I forgot to change the, I have done it. I have changed the title. So it is now about the programmer. And then, if ever I made an invalid choice, which in this case, I key in 123999. So we're going to have invalid input. Please select another number and the same press any key to continue. Okay, and we are back once again to the program. Okay, so as for the exit, so let's just simply put a code which says and console or environment dot exit 0. Okay, because if we did not code the exit, we're going to have an infinite loop wherein we're just going back again to the main menu every time we finish entering our choice. Okay? So now, since we have the environment.exit code, if we press 0 or input 0 in our choice, so it will proceed to press any key to continue, which is calling the environment.exit, and the program will terminate. But of course, you have to be courteous, so let's include a message telling that you're going to exit the program. Let's say, for example, thank you for using my program. Okay, and then execute. So now if we press 0, so thank you for using my program, and then press in any key to continue. And then the program will exit. We are now done creating our content. So now we're going to write our program, which concerns about the menu, so that we would be able to have a submenu inside our program. So for our submenu, we can simply copy paste all of the code that we have already created, including the switch case, inside the case also. So we're going to paste it inside the case or case number 3. So the problem with this one is the code will be populated with a menu inside a menu. So in order to write our code properly so that we would be able to debug it properly, so we're not going to put our code or our menu inside a case or inside case number 3. So instead, we're going to include another part of our program or another class in our program, wherein in order to do that, we have to right click or go to the Solution Explorer. So if ever the Solution Explorer is not present in your menu, let's say for example, in my case, I'm going to close it. So you just have to find it under View and then find Solution Explorer. Okay, so here it is. So we now have the Solution Explorer. Okay, so we're going to add another class and we're going to place our code inside that class for the second menu. Okay, so right click, add, and then let's just make use of this one, but you can also click new item and select class inside the new item. Okay, so in our case, since it is already available here, might as well use this menu. Okay, so class, and then the name will be, let's just name this one as class, and then our topic will be about parts of computer. So it's not visible here, but I remember that my topic will be about parts of computer. So I'm going to name this class parts of computer. So take note of my naming. So I just simply place everything in proper case so that it would still be readable even if I'm not using space. Because if I make use of space, I have to include some additional codes in my program, such as using square brackets, which will make it more difficult to uh, type, or which will include more characters when coding. Okay? If you really want space, you can also use underscore. So in my case, proper case. Okay, so I'm going to add the class parts of computer. So now I have the program.cs and I have the class parts of computer. Okay? So for the parts of class parts of computer, I'm going to include, as I have mentioned, I'm just simply going to copy paste all of the contents because I'm going to need the design for the main menu, or in your case, for you to be able to understand it easier, so you may copy paste it one by one. Let's say, for example, let's copy paste the int choice and then the menu that we already have, as well as the clear. But before we start the copy paste of the contents, we need to create a method inside the class parts of computer, so that it will load the second menu. So in order to create the class, it's just like having the main function that we have in our class program, but we are not allowed to name it also as main, as C# will only allow one entry point for the program, which is named main. So we're going to create another name for our class. Okay? So in this case, I'm going to copy paste this one, but I'm going to change the name. So I'm going to name this one main, and then parts of computer. Okay? And then create an open close curly brace for the block of code for, or for the group of the main of computers, main parts of computers. Okay, and the next, I will now start copying the content. So as we have mentioned, you can copy paste everything in a single click, but in this case, I'm just going to copy the menu and modify it so that later on you can see what is happening in the program. Okay, so as you can see there, it's like the same, that we have the program main and we have the class parts of computer and then main parts of computer method. Okay. Okay, next. So let's modify the content so that later on when we load it, we're going to see that we're now inside the parts of computer. So I'm going to copy this one, paste, and then replace the content. Where, let's say, for example, my first choice would be a mouse. The second one would be a keyboard. The third will be a monitor. And then number 4 will be printer. And then number 5 will be headset. Okay, so take note. So for the contents, you have to, or for the menu, you have to at least have at least 5 contents inside the menu. Okay, so I'm going to put that on comment later on. Okay, and as you can see, I don't need the number 6, but in order to retain the previous for or previous border that you have already created. In your case, you have the border, or in my case, just to be standard with the size of the menu. So I'm not going to remove the right line. So instead, I'm just going to remove the content. Okay? And the next, so let's just try first to load it in our program. So in order to load the program, so we need to call the namespace, and then class name, and then next is the method. Okay? So we're going to call computers, class computers, and then main parts of computer. So in this case, since we are on the same namespace, I don't really have to call the namespace. It is not required. Okay? But just to make it more clear for you, I'm going to include it as also. Okay? So we're going to load the parts of computer in choice number 3. Okay? So we're going to call, as we have mentioned, the namespace. So we have computers, and then dot or period, and then as you can see the classes available, where in this case, I'm going to call class parts of computer. Okay? And then another dot, and then we're going to call the main. But in this example, as you can see, the main is not available, because in order for the main to be available, we have to set it as public so that it will be visible in other class. Okay? So we include public. So now if we go back to program and then remove the dot before you retype it again. So the main parts of computer is now available. Okay? So you can now call it and include an open close parenthesis because it is a method, and then a semicolon. Okay? So now let's try to load number 3. So Control F5 and then number 3. Okay? So we now have the parts of computer. We have the enter your choice number, but we have not yet copy paste the switch case. So we can type anything and it's just going to, I think we already included it, the enter choice, but we don't have the switch. So whatever number we type, it will just simply end the code for the class parts of computer and go back once again to the main menu. Because after you finish loading the main parts of computer, it will clear, and then once it reached the end of the program, it will go back to the same code inside the program.cs. Okay, so that's how you load that's how you create and load the second menu. Okay, so now let's continue our copy paste so that we can include the contents for the choices in the second menu. Or if you want, you can create another switch and then choice, and then you can do the same as we have done in the first menu. Okay, so in my case, since I already know that it's going to be the same, so I might as well copy paste the whole switch and later on just modify the content. Okay, copy and then paste. Okay, so we just have to modify some stuff in here. So let's say, for example, instead of loading what is computer, so the content, all the content in here should be about the first choice, which is a mouse. So this one will be mouse. Okay, as well as number 2, keyboard. And the number 3, so take note, the number 3 is a menu. So where in this case, the number 3 is just another content. If I'm not mistaken, it is a monitor. And then another copy paste, which is about printer. if I'm correct. Monitor, printer, and then number 5, headset. We have an excess break. Okay, copy paste. Headset. And then case number 6, we don't have number 6. So let's just remove this one. And then, as for the exit, we are not actually going to exit if we select case 0. Okay, so what are we going to do if we select case 0? So if we select case 0, we need to end the program or end this class only. Okay? So let's try to remove the code. Okay? Because if we make use of this code, what will happen is, we're going to demonstrate it. Select number 3, parts of computer. And then, let's say for example, a content or anything. Or let's test the 0 first. So 0, and thank you for using my program. And then the program ended, which is not supposed to happen, because instead of exit, we're going to replace this one as go back to main. Okay? So in order for us to go back to main, we're going to do the same as we call the second menu, which is class parts of computer. So this time, we're going to call program.cs. Okay? So if we go to 0, instead of environment.exit, so we're going to call computers dot program dot main. Okay? So since we already encountered this one, so I think you already know the answer, which is to add public to our main method. Okay? So we're going to include public in here so that it will be available also in the other class. Okay? So program dot main. Okay? So now, if we select menu number 3, and then select 0, go back to main, so we will just be prompt again to the computers. Okay? So now, let's try other parts of the program. Let's say, for example, number 3, number 1, so mouse, and then press any key to continue. So what happens is, we went back to the main menu. Okay? Because in our previous code, what happens is, we are loading back the main. Okay, so in this case, we did not include any code yet calling the main. So therefore, the program ended and go back to the previous class that is loaded, or the main method. Okay? So instead of ending the program, or instead of calling main, okay, so what we're going to do is, we're going to copy the same, clear the console, and then instead of loading main, so we're going to call ourselves, or the class itself. So it's going to call main parts of the computer, so therefore it will just simply reload. Okay? We're going to do everything again. Okay, so main class parts of computer. Okay, so let's try it now. And so before, we selected number 3, parts, and then we select mouse, and then, let's say for example, press any key to continue. So we are still back to the parts of computer. Number 2, number 3, invalid input. So we already have the code for the invalid input since we copy paste everything from the first menu. Okay, invalid input, please select another number, and we're back again to parts of computer. So if we want to go back to the main menu, so we have to select 0. Okay, and we are now back to the first menu. Okay, so for the next menu, which is benefits of having a computer, so it's now very obvious that you simply have to copy paste the whole class. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate it also, since that will be very, very fast to do. Okay, in fact, instead of copying the code, I might as well copy the class parts of computer. So copy, and then I'm going to place the highlight or select the computers, which is the main project, and then paste. Okay, so I now have class parts of computer and then class parts of computer copy. And then I'm going to rename this one. So the shortcut for rename is F2. And then I'm going to rename this as class benefits of having a computer. So I'm just going to name it as benefits of computer. Okay, so you're going to have problems regarding the name. So I'm going to copy paste this name. So I pressed F2 to rename it again. So I can simply copy it. And then, so this one is now, this now will be replaced by the exact name of the class, which is class benefits of the computer. And so is this one. So instead of parts of, I'm going to rename this one as benefits of. Okay? And then, of course, we have a method below, or a code that we are calling back again the main menu. So we're going to just change it to benefits also. Okay? And you may now proceed with modifying the contents. So this one will be benefits. So let's say, for example, the benefits are speed, accuracy, user-friendly, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to put dot in here. And then go back to main will be the same. And then, so this one will be the speed, accuracy, and user-friendly. Okay? And then number 4 onwards, you just have to modify it based on your topic also. Okay? So the class is now ready, but it is still not yet being called in the main program. So therefore, if we select number 4, we will now call the same pattern as this one, but this time let's try something different. We will not include the computers because we already know that they belong to the same solution. Okay, so instead, I'm going now direct to class. As you can see, it is available because they belong to the same solution or namespace. Okay, so we have benefits dot main. Okay po. Okay, so the only difference in here is in here I have the computers dot, and in here I just simply not call it because, as I have mentioned, they belong on the same namespace. Okay, so now let's try to execute the program. So we now have number 4. Ayan na. So we have the benefits, and then everything is working just like the previous menu that we have created. Okay, invalid input, and then 0 to go back to main. Okay, and then 0 once again to exit the program. Thank you. Okay, and the next, we're not yet done. So we're going to discuss next on how to include your previous activities. The last part for our project is to load all our previous activities in this into a single project, which we will call all the previous activities in this menu. Okay, so since we already know how to create a menu, and we already know that we have it in our previous uh, menu, that we already have the codes, so we might as well copy once again the same menu that we have created. So in this case, I'm going to copy parts of computer and then paste it again. Okay, and then this time, I'm going to name this one as class. So once again, the shortcut for rename is F2. But if you don't want to press F2, here it is. We have you can right click and in the context menu, click rename. Okay, and then I'm going to name this one as class my activities. Okay, and then same again, copy again the name so that I can simply copy paste the class name. Okay, and then main, instead of main parts of computer, I'm going to rename this one as main my activities. And the next, so below, instead of reloading main parts of computer, I'm going to reload the same class name, my activities. Okay, so once we are done creating creating the class and renaming the class. So let's now go back to the design once again, or the content. And then let's name this one as my activities. So you're going to have the list of the activities, or you already have the activities that is needed, and we're just simply going to call the activities or the previous activities that we have created in this information system. Okay, so if you already have them, good for you. If you don't, you may start creating the program one by one, or you can create the activities by creating another class in here, and you can call them just like we did in the menus. Okay, so in my case, I'm assuming that I already have the activity, so I'm just going to rename this one my first program. Okay, so take note for the name of the menu, so I can use space because that will look nicer for the end users of the program. Okay, but in your previous activities, so we all know that we have named them without space, or some of you used underscore instead of not using space. Okay, so my first program, and then let's say, for example, my drawing. Okay, so you have to do your activities by yourself, or uh, based on your own activity. And then you have to place them in order also. So the first 1 to 5 are only about console.writeLine, and the number 5 is an open activity, which should be different for each student. Okay? So in my case, I'm just simply going to demonstrate how to load my first program and my drawing. Okay? So I'm going to remove all this content just to make it look more simple. So I might as well remove all the cases except for the 0, which is go back to main menu and the default. Okay? So case number 1, I'm going to call the previous activity. But it is not yet in the Solution Explorer. So therefore, we would not be able to call the program. So in order to add the previous activities, you can simply right-click and add existing item. So before, if you want to add another item, you can click new or create a class. But now, I'm going to include an existing item. Okay? So existing item, and then, so in this case, so my applications are located in my folder, or in the user folder, and then source, and then repo. Okay, so if you don't know where your previous activities are located, so as we have mentioned, when you click File, New, and Create Project, you already set the path of your files. But if you forgot, you can simply create another one and then click next. And then as you can see, you will be redirected to the file path or location of your file. So in this case, I'm going to cancel this one because I already know where my files are located. Okay, in fact, I copy paste it so that uh, I would I don't need to type it anymore. Okay, and in the folders or in the windows, you can type it in the address bar so that you would know where your files are located. Okay, so in my case, I have the computers, which is our final project. And let's say, for example, the previous activities such as my first program, and my drawing. Okay? So I'm going to add now the my first program, which is the Hello World. So add existing, and then, so from the file path, so I'm going to select the folder of my first program, and then the program.cs. So take note, you're going to have a conflict because the name of this one is program.cs and we already have the program.cs in our actual program. So in order to resolve this issue, I'm going to simply rename the program into program main. Okay? And when asked if you want to rename everything that is related to the class name, so you just click yes so that all the reference will also be renamed. Okay? See? It was renamed in other codes as well. Okay? So now let's add all other programs. So in your case, you're going to have as much as required uh, in the activities that we have done in our subject or course. So let's add existing item, and then as we have mentioned, it's on your folders /repo. So you can also remove the subfolders so that you will be able to go to the folder wherein you would be able to see all of your C# or Visual Studio projects. So in this case, we have the my first program, and then program, so we can now load it without a problem. Okay? But later on, of course, we're going to have another problem because we have all of our previous activities are named program.cs. So I'm going to rename this one also as program hello or my first program. Okay? So unfortunately, the program name was not renamed, but that's okay because it has a different namespace. So therefore, it will not conflict with other activities. Okay? And this time, if we're going to call it, we have to include my first program because it has a different namespace with our previous project. Also, in order for the main method to be available, you have to set it as public. Okay? And since the name of this one is also main, as we have mentioned, you're going to have an error because the compiler will only find or will only require one entry point. So therefore, we're going to rename this one as another name instead of just having main. So we're going to name this one as main, and I will include also the my first program in its name. Okay? And then same as before, it has string arguments, so I'm just going to remove it. Okay? So now, the previous activity is ready to be included in the rest of our activity or in our final project. Okay? So I'm going back now to the menu, which is class my activities. And then, in order to call it, we have the namespace, class, and method name. So in our case, the name of our activity is my first program, program, and then main. So let's now call it in our case 1. My first program, that program, that main. Okay? And then, same as before, might as well include a console.read key. And the previous one that we have, which is the instruction wherein press any key to continue. That would be the code for our case 1. Okay, but since we have just copy paste the my activities, we also need to go back to main so that we will call it in menu number 6. So remember the pattern, the solution name or the namespace, and then the class, and then the method. Okay, or in this case, since we copy paste this one and it's being created in the same namespace, so we can just simply call the class and then the method. So we're going to do this one because this is shorter, skipping one step in calling the namespace. Okay, so we have class, my activities, that my main, my activities. Okay, so let's execute the program and test. So call number 6, or select number 6 as your choice. And then we have my first program. And in there, my first program, or in my activities, we have case number 1, which we'll call my first program. So let's select number 1. And then there's the press any key to continue. And then the read key is waiting for any character. And then let's say press any key. And then it will call once again the clear and reload the my main my activities, which is the start again of this class. Okay. And then 0, go back to main. So therefore, you're back once again to the main. Okay, so just for the sake of the record, let's just try to do it again. So let's say, for example, we have the my drawing. Right click. Although you can simply replay since this one's recorded. So right click, add existing item. And then, so this time, let's go back to the repos. And then let's have the my drawing activity. And then the program.cs, which will not conflict because we have already renamed the previous program.cs. Okay, so we have program.cs, rename this one as program my drawing, and then F2 again, and then copy, Control C, and then we're going to rename this one as program my drawing, and then main my drawing. So did we rename the my first program? Oh, we didn't even bother renaming the program since they are on different namespace. Okay, so let's do the same also. So let's not rename the program, and let's just rename the main, because this is the only part that will give us an error because we are only allowed to have one main or entry point. And then don't forget to include the public, and then remove the string args. Okay, so therefore I'm not going to modify anything in our activity. Okay, and then next, go back again to the menu for the activities, and you have to call it. So you have to know the namespace, program, and then the method. So we have my drawing. So we have my drawing as the namespace, that program, that main. Okay, so back to the my activities. So my drawing, that program, that main. Okay, so now let's try to execute this. But before that, same, we have to copy paste the guides for the users. So we now have number 6, my activities, my first program. You have the hello world. And then number 2, the drawing. Okay? And as I've mentioned, if you forgot or you're just going to create the program right now for your project, you can simply right click and create a new class. Just like we did before in the main menu. Okay? So instead of creating, let's say for example, creating case number 3 and then writing all the codes in this menu. So that would be hard to fix because you're going to have a lot of code. Okay? So therefore, if you are just creating the project, you might as well create the project in another class. Okay, so I'm going to add and then new class. Okay, so in this case, it's class.cs just to standardize my name since I'm already having program in my first name. I'm going to name this one as program and then let's say for example, my profile.cs and then add. Okay? So the difference in this one is they have the same namespace. So therefore, this program does not require calling the namespace. Okay? Unlike in the Hello World or my first program that we have, they have a different namespace. So for my profile, you have to create also your main method, such as in this one, you have public static void and then the name of the program. Or also in our menu, you have the and public static void and then the name of the menu. Okay, so in our case, we have the my profile. So public static void and then let's just name this one just to standardize main my drawing. Okay, and the next sorry, my drawing, my profile. Okay, so I'm going to include in my profile. Let's say for example, name, Jovi, and then copy paste for other details. Okay? Bulacan for the address. Okay po. So now, let's try to, just like the other activities, we're going to call this one. So computers that program my profile and then main my profile. But as I have mentioned, since this one also have the same namespace name, so I don't need to call the computers anymore. So go to my activities. And then, let's say for example, we now have the case number 3, which is number 3 will be my profile. And then, case 3, we're going to call my profile. So we have my drawing. So in this case, they are calling the namespace, but as I have said, you don't need to call the namespace because we have the same namespace for this example because we just created the activity in this project as well. Okay, so number 3, we have to call the class. What's the name of it again? So we have the my profile. Ayan. So program my profile and then main my profile. Okay, program my profile dot the main. Okay, and then open close parenthesis and then close. and then execute the program to test. So we now have number 6, and then the number 3, my profile that we have just created right now. Okay? And then it is working just like the other activities. So that's how you create the final project. Just to clarify on the minimum requirements, so you need to have at least 2 contents regarding your topic. And you need to have 2 menu with at least 5 sub-menu or sub-contents or contents. And then, the about the programmer, which is a content also. And then, the activity menu with all the activities that you have created in our course. So that is the minimum requirements for our project. So good luck in creating your project, and God bless always.